What started as Ivanka Trump's trap became Jasmine Crockett's triumph. The IQ test meant to mock her turned into Ivanka's nightmare. Every round hit harder, every answer exposed more, until one secret blew everything open. Is this the moment Ivanka Trump's pride finally crashed? Stay with us. This is a story worth every second of your time. The hearing room pulsed like a live wire under blinding white lights. Every camera pointed straight at the center table. The red ticker on the TV screamed IQ Showdown, live before Congress. Lawmakers sat stiff pens tapping, eyes burning. The silence was so sharp it could cut glass. Then the doors burst open. Ivanka Trump stepped in, glowing in white like she owned the world. Her heels clicked like countdowns. She smirked at Jasmine Crockett and said, "Honestly, I'm not sure Congresswoman Crockett even has the IQ to read basic economic papers. This is politics, not a night school class." Gasps tore through the room. A few lawmakers exchanged stunned looks. Ivanka leaned closer, voice dripping venom. "If you're so smart, prove it. Take an IQ test right here, right now, before the entire nation." Cameras zoomed tight on Jasmine's face. She didn't blink, just smiled coldly. "Deal," she said. The room exploded. The noise from the crowd still buzzed from Jasmine's calm. Deal, but the tension had grown heavier, sharper. The chair tapped the gavel once, and the cameras locked in. Ivanka rose from her seat slowly, her movements deliberate, her confidence radiating like perfume. The white fabric of her suit shimmered under the harsh light. She smiled sweetly, but her tone sliced through the silence. "I have scored in the top 2% of IQ tests," she declared proudly. "Since I was a child, I've been called a genius. Harvard, Wharton, everywhere I went, my intellect was recognized." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some lawmakers shifted uncomfortably, others rolled their eyes. The arrogance in her voice filled the air like smoke. Ivanka reached into her leather folder and pulled out a thick stack of papers. "This," she said, holding it up for the cameras, "is an internationally certified IQ question set. Fair, accurate, and foolproof." Her tone dripped with sugar, but every word carried venom. She walked forward, heels echoing, and placed the stack in front of Jasmine with a loud thud. "Let's see how far your confidence takes you," she whispered, just loud enough for the microphones to catch. Jasmine didn't move right away. She adjusted the microphone, straightened her papers, and spoke evenly. "Let's begin," she said. "I don't run from challenges." Her calm tone contrasted sharply with Ivanka's sharp delivery. The crowd leaned forward. The red light on every camera blinked faster, as if even the machines were nervous. Ivanka flashed a quick smile. "Fine," she said. "Let's start simple." She lifted the first page. Question 1. If 5 workers build 5 houses in 5 days, how many days would 100 workers need to build 100 houses? She paused, eyes gleaming, clearly expecting hesitation. Jasmine barely looked down. 5 days, she said, voice steady. The ratio stays constant. The answer hit the room like a small explosion. Gasps, a few faint claps. Ivanka's smile twitched. Ivanka moved quickly to the next paper. Question 2, she said tightly. Which of these shapes can form a cube when folded? She slid the paper across the table. Jasmine glanced once, then smiled faintly. That one, she said, tapping the correct figure. Looks just like a Texas rooftop. The chamber chuckled. Several lawmakers couldn't hide their amusement. The cameras caught Ivanka's face. Her grin had hardened into a frown. Trying to regain control, Ivanka picked up the next sheet with trembling fingers. All right, let's make this interesting, she said. Question 3, find the next number in this sequence. 2, 6, 12, 20, 30. She crossed her arms, confident again. Jasmine leaned closer to the mic. The answer is 42, she said without hesitation. The pattern increases by consecutive even numbers. Silence followed. Then the big screen behind them flashed bright blue letters. Correct, 3 out 3. Crockett, 100%. The audience broke into applause, reporters whispered furiously, and the sound of camera shutters filled the air. Ivanka forced a laugh, her voice tight. Those were warm-up questions, she said through clenched teeth. Don't celebrate too soon. Jasmine met her gaze, calm and unshaken. You wanted to compare IQs, she said softly. The truth just spoke for itself. The gavel struck again. The first round was over, but the real battle had just begun. The sound of applause still echoed when Ivanka snapped the folder shut. Her smile was gone. Her tone turned cold, clipped each word bitten off like glass. "You only solve the easy ones," she sneered. "Anyone can do that. Now let's see your real intellect." The room quieted. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Ivanka pulled out another sheet, her manicured nails clicking against the paper. "Here's something you won't answer so fast," she said, her voice low and taunting. A probability problem complex layered not for amateurs. She began to read slowly, almost savoring every number. If the odds of a factory accident are 3 in 1,000, and the risk doubles when production increases by 25%, how many accidents are expected after 4 production cycles at full capacity? The air thickened. The reporters froze mid-sentence. One lawmaker whispered, "She's trying to trap her." The camera zoomed in on Jasmine's face, calm, focused, almost serene. She didn't reach for a pen. She didn't look at notes. Her voice came out steady, precise. 3 accidents per 1,000 is the baseline, she began. At double risk, that becomes 6. Multiply that by 4 full cycles, 24 expected incidents per 1,000. But that's not just a number. That's 24 families wondering if their loved ones come home. That's why regulation matters. The last line hit like thunder. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then the first clap came from a senator in the front row. Another followed. Soon half the chamber erupted in applause. A journalist whispered, "She turned math into meaning." Even the chair looked impressed. Jasmine's answer wasn't just correct, it was alive. She had transformed a cold equation into a statement about people policy and power. Ivanka's face hardened. Her fingers twitched slightly against the desk, a faint tremor betraying her calm facade. Trying to recover, Ivanka forced a laugh that cracked mid-sound. "Lucky guess," she muttered. "Pure luck." But her voice wavered. Jasmine leaned toward the mic, her tone soft but cutting. "Intelligence isn't luck," she said. "It's the ability to turn truth into service for others." The line landed with surgical precision. Cameras flashed. The audience hung on every word. Ivanka shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the monitors displaying Jasmine's flawless score. Her earlier arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something raw panic. She looked like a queen realizing the crown no longer fit. Jasmine stayed composed, hands folded neatly before her, the embodiment of calm strength. Every gesture, every word was deliberate, steady, and unshakable. The chair cleared his throat, his voice breaking the tension. "Answer verified," he said. "Congresswoman Crockett, correct again." Applause thundered louder this time, echoing through the marble walls. Jasmine didn't smile, but her eyes glimmered with quiet fire. Ivanka sat frozen, jaw tight, trapped between disbelief and rage. By the end of the second round, the scoreboard on the giant screen said it all: Crockett. Perfect record. Ivanka's empire of confidence had cracked. The crowd no longer looked at her with admiration, they looked at Jasmine with respect. The battle had shifted. Ivanka was no longer the challenger. She was the one cornered, and everyone in the room could feel it. The silence after Jasmine's flawless answer was heavy, but Ivanka couldn't take it anymore. Her hand slammed the table with a sharp crack that made the microphones buzz. Papers jumped. "This isn't fair," she shouted, voice trembling with fury. "We'll do it live on screen right now. Let everyone see who's faster, who's smarter." Gas rippled through the room. The chair hesitated, then nodded. "Approved. Both contestants will take the digital IQ test visible to the public." A technician rushed forward, connecting cables, the large LED screen flickering to life behind them. The words glowed in bold letters, "Real-time intelligence test." The room transformed into an arena. The first question flashed, "Identify the next shape in this sequence." Jasmine's eyes moved once across the screen, her fingers clicking almost instantly. Answer locked 6 seconds. A second later, Ivanka clicked too late. The screen blinked red under her name, incorrect. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Reporters whispered furiously. One congressman muttered, "She's cracking." Jasmine sat still, calm as glass. Ivanka's jaw clenched. She forced a smile. "A small mistake," she said loudly, waving her hand. "The next question is what matters." But her voice had lost its control. It wavered, thin and brittle. Round 2 began. The question appeared, "Find the missing number in this matrix." Jasmine didn't even blink. Her answer hit the board in 5 seconds. Correct. Ivanka stared too long, typing slower this time. When her result appeared wrong again, the room broke into laughter and disbelief. The camera zoomed in close, catching a bead of sweat sliding down her temple. Her smile twitched, froze, then cracked entirely. It's just lag, she snapped at the technician. The system's off. But the data screen behind her told a different story. Jasmine's answers flawless, fast and unshaken. A few lawmakers couldn't contain themselves. Soft chuckles escaped across the chamber. Journalists scribbled furiously, their pens scratching like static. One reporter whispered, "She's digging her own grave." The air was no longer tense, it was electric. Every heartbeat in the room synced with the ticking countdown clock on the monitor. Ivanka's face turned pale under the stage lights, her posture stiffening as if her pride were the only thing holding her up. Jasmine looked at her, but said nothing. Her silence was louder than applause. Then came the explosion. Ivanka slammed her fist on the desk again, her voice rising to a scream. "My IQ is higher than yours. I've been the top of every class, every school since I was a child. You just got lucky. This means nothing." The outburst echoed through the hall, caught by every camera, every mic. For a second, even the reporters stopped writing. Jasmine slowly turned her head, met Ivanka's eyes, and spoke with steady calm. "The results are right there," she said. "Luck doesn't repeat itself. Truth does." Her tone was quiet, but it hit like thunder. The screen froze on their faces. Ivanka flushed red with anger. Jasmine cool and unmoved. The contrast was brutal cinematic. One looked like a storm losing power, the other a soldier who had already won the war. The crowd didn't need an announcement. They knew who had taken control. The second climax had ended, and Ivanka Trump had just lost the room. The screen still held their faces. Ivanka flushed Jasmine calm when the chair's gavel faded and the room's buzz returned like static. Instead of backing down, Ivanka straightened, lifted her chin, and raised her voice to carry over the cameras. "IQ doesn't measure power. Power is the proof of intellect. And I have it." The words rolled like a drumbeat, daring anyone to argue. She spread her hands toward the lights that pressed the stage itself, as if the setup were her Exhibit A. Pens stopped. Heads turned. For a heartbeat, she looked like she believed the stage could save her. Jasmine tilted her mic, her reply clean and precise. "Borrowed power can come from a last name, from money, from media," she said. "But history shows that the arrogant, the ones who believe power will protect them, are the ones who fall." A hush fell over the room. Even the camera operators leaned in. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Each word landed like a measured strike. Ivanka's smile held, but her fingers curled into her palm, the knuckles whitening as if the sentence had weight. Jasmine kept going, steady and surgical. "Richard Nixon had the trappings of power," she said. "He had the office, the seal, the motorcades, and he fell to Watergate because he thought power would hide the truth." A ripple moved through the dais. Joe McCarthy had headlines, fear, and a microphone, she continued. "He hunted shadows until the lights turned on, and then the theater ended. Power didn't save him. Accountability did." The references were simple, but the message was sharp. Power is not armor, it is a mirror. A few lawmakers laughed outright, not cruelly, but with the release of tension snapping loose. The press gallery came alive, pens, scratching cameras, blinking whispers trading like currency. On living room couches across the country, viewers leaned closer, sensing the turn. Ivanka's hands locked tighter. You could see the nails bite into skin. She tried to hold her posture, but the mask slipped a fraction, a flicker around the eyes that said the punch had landed. The applause that followed was not thunderous, but it was real, and it was worse for her because it was earned, not staged. Ivanka drew a breath as if to speak, then thought better of it. The math of the moment was against her. Jasmine had turned the argument from ego to ethics, from bragging to history, from speed to substance. "Power is not proof," Jasmine added, voice low and even. "Service is." The sentence hung there like a verdict you could not appeal. The chair didn't need to bang the gavel. The audience reaction did the work, soft laughter, nods, a few audible. "That's right." What began as an insult had boomeranged into a lesson in civics. By the time the murmurs settled, the momentum had fully shifted. Ivanka's opening swagger was gone. her shoulders tight, her eyes darting to the scoreboard as if numbers could rescue pride. The room no longer measured who was loudest. It measured who made sense. And on that measure, Jasmine owned the floor. The attack had turned back on its author, and the humiliation that had started as a weapon now hovered inches from its maker. The tension from Jasmine's last words still hung in the air. Reporters froze mid-sentence. The lights felt hotter, and every camera light blinked red. Then Jasmine reached into her briefcase and pulled out a red folder stamped with a bold FBI seal. The sound of the metal clip unlocking echoed across the room like a warning shot. The chamber fell silent, no one breathed. Even Ivanka's smirk vanished. Jasmine rose slowly, her voice cutting through the quiet. "This," she said, holding the folder up, "is an authenticated federal record." The murmur that followed died as quickly as it began. She opened it with calm precision, flipping to the top page. Her tone was deliberate, each word landing like a hammer. Email, she began, from Donald J. Trump to Ivanka Trump, dated October 12, 1996. Then she read steady and slow, "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll have someone take the test for you." The line seemed to freeze time. For 2 full seconds, nothing moved, then the entire chamber erupted. Reporters jumped from their seats, cameras flashed like lightning, and the sound of desks slamming filled the air. "No way," one congressman shouted. "Unbelievable," another yelled. The echo bounced off marble and microphones. Jasmine didn't flinch. She closed the folder, then threw the printed page onto the wooden table with a thunderous bang that silenced the chaos instantly. The paper hit the wood like a gavel of judgment. "You never even took your own test," Jasmine said, her voice low, slicing through the noise. "So what right do you have to mock anyone else's IQ?" The sentence hit harder than any statistic. Ivanka's face went white, her lips trembling, eyes darting between the cameras and the folder. She tried to speak, nothing came out. Her hand reached for the paper, then stopped halfway, fingers shaking. The microphones picked up a faint gasp from her direction, her breath shallow, uneven. She looked cornered, an empire trapped in human form. The sound in the room swelled again, chaotic and raw. Journalists barked questions. Flashes painted the scene in strobe. A senator pounded his fist on the table and shouted, "Is this real?" The chair confirmed, verified by the FBI. The words sealed it. The revelation wasn't just political, it was personal. On screens across the nation, Americans watched Ivanka Trump, once untouchable, unravel in real time. Her legacy, the perfect image, the genius daughter, collapsed like glass. The cameras zoomed in tight. Sweat glistened under the studio lights. Her mascara smudged slightly as she blinked in disbelief. Jasmine stood motionless, gaze-fixed, posture like iron. She didn't need to say more. The proof spoke for itself. The mighty had fallen, and the audience knew they had just witnessed it live. By the time the echoes faded, there was no doubt left anywhere in the chamber, in the headlines, or in living rooms across America. The nation had just seen its genius exposed as a fraud. Ivanka Trump, the symbol of privilege and perfection, was no longer standing on a pedestal. She was standing in the wreckage of her own lie. The shock from the revealed email still crackled in the air as the room tried to breathe again. Ivanka pushed back from her chair and nearly missed her footing. She staggered a step, caught herself on the table edge, and shook her head in small, frantic motions. "No, that's taken out of context." She stammered the words, thin and breaking. The cameras drank in every detail, lips trembling, breath hitching, hands clamped so tight on the seat that her knuckles blanched. A murmur rolled through the chamber, disbelief first, then certainty. Jasmine didn't rise to chase the moment. She sat tall and let the silence come to her. She leaned toward the mic, the metal grill catching a cold gleam. Her voice carried to the rafters, steady and resonant. "IQ that sous la sous, trungtuk vatrak niem. Hong I ko the muachuak juho." The sentence landed like a verdict, clean, final, and impossible to bargain with. For a heartbeat, even the cameras seemed to hold still. The chair stood first, palms together, then apart in a firm clap. One member rose, then another, and suddenly the dais was on its feet. The applause swelled, filling the room like a rising tide against marble and wood. A staffer wiped at his eyes. A veteran in the back row pressed a hand over his heart. Reporters lowered their pens just for a second to look up and feel it. It wasn't noise, it was release. Across the country, living rooms fell quiet before they roared. Older viewers leaned forward in their recliners, remote controls forgotten on the armrest. "That's justice," one grandmother whispered to no one, and to everyone, tears rimmed bright. A retired teacher texted her bridge group, "Truth still matters." The highlight replayed on a loop, Jasmine's line, the hush, the standing ovation, and the years that had made people cynical loosened their grip. In that moment, it felt like the system remembered its promise. Back in the chamber, the finale wrote itself in light. Ivanka turned toward the aisle, dazed, blinking hard as a wall of flashbulbs erupted, white bursts like tiny explosions eating the air. She moved through them as if through rain eyes. Unfocused jaw slacked, the perfect image shattering frame by frame. Behind her, the committee kept standing. Jasmine remained seated at the witness table, spine straight, hands folded, gaze steady as steel. She looked less like a politician and more like a soldier who had held her ground. And as the doors closed on the echo of footsteps, the room knew which figure had truly stayed standing. The roar of applause had barely faded when the story detonated beyond the walls of Congress. Within hours, every major outlet from the Washington Post to CNN had the same front-page headline in bold type: "The IQ showdown of the century, Ivanka Trump defeated." News choppers circled the Capitol dome as if the nation itself were replaying the scene on loop. Networks spliced footage of Jasmine's final line: "IQ is honesty and responsibility." No one can buy that, with Ivanka's frozen expression as she gripped her chair. Commentators called it the cleanest knockout ever delivered, without a single shout. The visual told the story of one woman standing firm, the other stumbling through the flash of her own undoing. By evening, late-night talk shows turned the hearing into satire. The first monologue opened with a smirk. Maybe Ivanka should have called her dad to take the test for her again. The crowd howled, the drummer hit a rim shot, and the joke spread like wildfire across social media. Another host quipped, "She failed faster than a Trump casino," earning a standing ovation. Clips of Ivanka's 6-second delay and Jasmine's instant correct answers flooded TikTok. On one viral edit, the caption read, "6 seconds of truth versus a lifetime of privilege." Within 12 hours, IQ Showdown trended in 15 countries, while memes of the red FBI folder appeared with the tagline, "Sweetheart, someone already took the test for you." Meanwhile, the political earthquake rolled straight through Washington. Opposition lawmakers wasted no time seizing the spectacle. At a morning press conference, one senator declared, "Yesterday wasn't a hearing, it was an autopsy of arrogance." Another added, "The Trump dynasty didn't just lose face, it lost its illusion of superiority." Committee aides leaked proposals for a new Integrity and Testimony Act, half serious, half symbolic, but devastatingly timed. Even moderate conservatives admitted off record that the scene had damaged the family brand beyond repair. Ivanka's once pristine reputation as the polished, poised Trump was now shorthand for fraud dressed in designer white. Cable panels that had once called her America's poised princess rebranded her overnight as the heiress who couldn't pass her own test. Her social media went silent. Comments flooded with IQ jokes and screenshots of her shocked face. Former allies distanced themselves. A luxury fashion house quietly removed her from an upcoming campaign. PR firms whispered that the name's too hot to touch. Her influence didn't just dip, it evaporated. In business circles, she became a case study in overconfidence. She mistook inherited spotlight for earned brilliance, one columnist wrote. Now the light just burned her. Jasmine, on the other hand, became the story the country wanted to believe in. Morning shows replayed her composure under fire, the calm blink before every right answer, the way her voice never rose above steady conviction. Time called her the new David in America's political arena. The Atlantic described her as the calm in the cultural storm, a woman who proved intellect is integrity under pressure. Interviews poured in from every major outlet. School teachers streamed her quotes to their students. Veterans groups replayed her lines about service and honesty. Her social feeds exploded with messages from parents saying their daughters wanted to be a Jasmine. She wasn't just trending, she was transforming. Producers at news networks began cutting the footage like a championship bout. The slow pan across Jasmine's still face contrasted with Ivanka's frantic gestures. The microphones looked like boxing gloves, the spotlight their ring. Play-by-play commentators replayed each exchange as if analyzing punches. Question 1. 5 workers, 5 houses, 5 days. Jasmine's reply, 5 days. The ratio stays constant. Landed like a clean jab. Question 2. Which shape folds into a cube? The one that looks like a Texas rooftop. A playful uppercut, the audience laughing in her corner. Question 3. Next in sequence. 2, 6, 12, 20, 30. Jasmine, 42. The knockout before the bell. Then the probability question, her explanation turning math into morality. By the time the red folder hit the table, it was no longer a match, it was a coronation. The contrast became iconic. Every documentary replayed the same freeze frame, Ivanka's pupils darting left under the blinding lights, while Jasmine's eyes stayed locked forward, unblinking. The background hum of camera shutters sounded like applause disguised as thunder. Commentators described it as the moment Washington remembered what truth looks like under pressure. The imagery was too powerful for satire alone. Editorial cartoons painted Jasmine as David Calm, with her sling of facts, and Ivanka as Goliath collapsing under the weight of ego. By week's end, even non-political Americans knew the line IQ as honesty and responsibility. No one can buy that. It appeared on T-shirts, mugs, protest signs, and student notebooks. Universities invited Jasmine to speak on integrity and leadership. Late-night hosts ended their shows quoting her instead of mocking her. She became the rare political figure who didn't just win, she inspired. Meanwhile, Ivanka's silence became its own headline. She appeared nowhere, said nothing, retreated behind closed doors. Each day, another headline chipped at what remained of her image. Ivanka loses contracts, former allies, distance themselves. Polls show 82% say she lied. Commentators described her downfall with the detached awe of meteorologists watching a perfect storm. The family name that once opened every door now hung heavy in every punchline. In the public imagination, the IQ showdown outgrew itself. It wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about truth, courage, and who deserved to speak for the people. Jasmine Crockett's name became the shorthand for that moment, the day the stage flipped, and the so-called powerful blinked. And when news anchors signed off, they did so with the same line that now echoed across America. In the battle between arrogance and authenticity, the result was clear. Jasmine stood taller. The domestic headlines were still roaring when the story spilled over America's borders and detonated abroad. European anchors replayed the final exchange with slow forensic precision, then cut to panels of ethicists and former ministers. A prim broadcaster in London leaned into the camera and said, "This was not about puzzles. This was about character." A French nightly newscast ran the split screen of silence versus shouting and stamped a caption that read, "Proof beats posture." A stern anchor in Berlin summarized it in one sentence: "Jai Kong Chi La IQ Test Ma La Feptu Jiao Juk Quachin Try Mai." The clip traveled because the frame was simple truth under pressure, either holds or it breaks. By morning in Tokyo, producers built an on-air timeline, like a courtroom chart: question-answer, reaction, consequence. In Delhi, a panel of education reformers debated whether intellect without integrity should count for anything in public life. A Brazilian columnist wrote that the hearing reset the exchange rate of credibility, and her words climbed through the trending list by noon. In Nairobi, a Sunday show spliced Jasmine's calm with clips of whistleblowers and labeled the segment "Courage as Competence." Even in capitals where America is often a punchline, the tone turned almost reverent. People recognized the universal scene of a powerful name meeting an immovable fact. The world didn't need a translator for the look in Ivanka's eyes when the page hit the table. Back home, the country's oldest viewers carried the flame like it was a family heirloom. In living rooms with porcelain figurines and framed wedding photos, the highlight reel looped until the silence between beats felt holy. At community centers, grandmothers leaned over tablets and pressed replay, then whispered to their daughters, "Ngoi Punu Dai, Ivanka Bai, Hokka Joy Kong, Quen." A retired steelworker in Pittsburgh forwarded the clip with the subject line, "Watch the calm." In Phoenix, a widow paused the frame where Jasmine didn't blink and said aloud, "That's what grace looks like." There was nothing abstract in their praise. They saw patience, steadiness, and a verdict passed without spite. Church basements became screening rooms. VFW halls turned into small theaters of recognition. Someone brought donuts, someone brought a speaker, and soon the room filled with the click of phones as the 6-second answer flashed again. A Korean war vet tapped his cane twice when the line about service came back through the speakers, as if calling the past to attention. In Miami, a domino table went quiet as the red folder appeared, then erupted when the email was read. Even the men who never watched politics said the same two words: she stood. In Milwaukee, an elder wrote Jasmine's quote on a scrap of paper and slid it into a Bible like a ribbon. Across time zones, age did what algorithms couldn't. It filtered noise and kept the signal. International media kept circling, mapping the day onto their own histories. A South African anchor compared the moment to televised reckonings that had shifted national moods. In Warsaw, a commentator called it civic hygiene, the cleaning scrubbed by cameras and applause. An Australian editorial argued that testing is meaningless without the moral hand that holds the pencil. The common thread wasn't anti-American glee. It was the relief of watching a system for once reward the person who didn't shout. Each segment returned to the same minimalist truth: facts landed and power blinked. Outside the Capitol, the air crackled with microphones and questions angled like spears. A crush of reporters waited at the steps, boom poles bobbing against a hard white sky. When the doors opened, the chant began soft and rose like a wave. Keep the truth, keep the truth. Flashbulbs stitched the morning into a single relentless day. Jasmine emerged, not rushing, not posing, absorbing the noise as if it were weather. Her eyes were forward, her shoulders square, a center of gravity made visible. She paused at the top stair and let the crowd break around her like surf around a rock. A correspondent shouted a question she didn't take. Another asked if she felt vindicated, and she only lifted the microphone an inch. Her voice held the same still temperature it had held inside. IQ kong fai tro choi kia un gao. No la vuhi bao ve kong chung. The words hung in the winter light and didn't need an echo. The echo was already living in 1,000 open tabs and subtitles and notebooks, in the warmed corners of kitchens where elders pressed pause. Cameras chased her as she stepped down one stair then another, the chant reshaping itself into applause. A teenager on the barricade turned his phone to film himself and said, "That's the line," then flipped the camera back to catch her silhouette against the press wall. A radio host whispered to a producer, "Clip the last 10 seconds clean," and the producer nodded, already marking time codes in a glowing timeline. The security detail made a lane through the crush, but Jasmine didn't hurry. She set the pace and the crowd adjusted. Even the wind seemed to wait for the last syllable to pass. Thank you for watching until this moment and for standing with us on this journey for justice. Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know what moved you most in this story. Together, our voices make a difference.